Glen, coming at you with our January market review. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about equity and how important that is, as well as a look into some of the factors that are Today we're going to take a look at equity and how important that is for you as a homeowner, as well as some information surrounding the rest of the market and what you should know heading into the spring market. Stay tuned. Welcome to the monthly market report for January 2021. It's 2021, guys. Are you as happy as I am to have 2020 behind us? Well, the reality of that is 2020 set the table for 2021 in the real estate market. Today we're going to talk about a lot of the things that we can expect to see this year, as well as a look back on what happened last year. So I want to get started with this, and I'm going to start with a quote from Showing Time. It's a quote that I think helps position everything that 2020 did, getting ready to enter this year in 2021. It says, market data has always been a powerful tool for real estate. But 2020 marked a new high point for how data was leveraged to encourage informed decisions and to help real estate professionals reinforce their status as market experts. That came from Showing Time, Positive Takeaways from 2020 blog post. And if we think about that, we think about everything that happened in 2020, from the pandemic to unrest, and certainly epic things happening across the country, national disasters, all sorts of things. And our business market data was the difference maker. And I think as we look back on the last year and this quote from Showing Time, we can kind of say, okay, how do we use that going forward to help people understand what's coming in 2021? You know, this past year, I clipped a few slides here just to remind you where we came from. Talking about all the reasons it wasn't 2008 all over again, from an appreciation to inventory to equity, all the things that we know about the real estate market that help counter all the news that was out there. And so many of you put this message out there and got out there and helped drive the market forward, where I believe we are today as a result of great agents across the country driving forward this business. Let's think about this slide here where we talked about the price change during the last 5 recessions and how recession does not equal housing crisis. And this is what really kicked it off. Everybody remembers the housing crisis of '08, where homes lost almost 20% of value. And yet when we look at prior recessions, we'll see it's just not the case. And now we have the last 6 recessions. So now when you look at that, we started out the year saying recession does not equal housing crisis. And now you can confidently go out and say, we talked about this last year. Now we have this year's numbers that have come in from the CoreLogic National Home Price Index, showing home prices rose 7.3% according to CoreLogic in 2020. And when you look at these 6 recessions, we can see 4 of the 6 times home prices actually appreciated during recessions. Again, a lot of people think '08 was going to happen all over again, but you were the ones that got the message out there and did a great job. I'd be getting this message out there again saying, hey, now we have the updated information. We can show you what happened to home prices during last year. You know, the rule of thumb of this story right now as we kick off 2021 and all the things that happened in 2020 is that appreciation of 7.3 has grown home equity. The story is really the growth of home equity. And you know, during the past year, home equity has been critical to people across the country in a lot of different ways. In ways that they've used it maybe to weather the financial storm, to have the ability to go out and sell their home if they needed to and not be underwater and literally have to go into foreclosure or something scary like that. Equity is the star of the real estate market in 2020. And I'd like to pull a quote here from CoreLogic from Dr. Frank, and he says this: over the past year, strong home price growth has created a record level of home equity for homeowners. The average family with a home mortgage loan had about $194,000 in home equity in the third quarter. So as of the third quarter, if you remember, that number was before $177,000 average in home equity, and it's gone up to $194,000 in home equity. He goes on to say, this provides an important buffer to protect families if they experience financial difficulties and is one reason for the generational low in foreclosure rates. Another reason for the generational low in foreclosure rates is that there's a momentum right now on foreclosures. But this equity, this growing equity, has and will continue to help people weather the storm relative to things they may be experiencing as a fallout of the pandemic and the challenges that it's caused in businesses across the country. If we go deeper into this from CoreLogic, $17K is the average gain in equity in a mortgaged home. We just talked about $194K being the average of a home with a mortgage on it. CoreLogic says that 38.2% of the homes owned free and clear in this country, and 10.8 is the increase in equity, totally over $1 trillion since the third quarter. So, third quarter of 2019 to the third quarter of 2020. Tremendous growth in home equity. And it's happening all over the country. You can see here, depending on the state you're in, just how much equity has grown over the past year. In Virginia, 22K. California, 34K. In Illinois, we can see 6K growth in equity. Very, very important for people as they've used this in their lives to help weather the storm. We've talked about back in 2008, a lot of the issues we faced as an industry were because of the misuse of home equity. And we're certainly seeing a different story this time, and the story we want people to help understand. Here, Frank Martell, the CEO of CoreLogic, says this: the housing market has remained a strong pillar in an otherwise tumultuous economic year. A sharp rise in demand, surged by low record interest rates, continues to bolster homeowner equity. And with many people now spending more time than ever before at a home, some homeowners have tapped into their strength in the equity to fund renovations. Certainly that's been case in case over the past year. Many people staying at home or buying another home, or they're improving their home or buying another home. Equity has played a key part in this. Now I'm going to talk about more reasons we need to be talking about the value of home ownership as we go through the monthly market report today. But as we look back, equity certainly has been the shining star. But even as we look forward, the most recent home price expectations survey shows us that over the next 5 years, the average home for, let's say, $300K, if purchased today, that homeowner stands to gain appreciation of about $50,000. $54,221 in appreciation, adding to that equity. That equity provides opportunity to people, whether it be to start a business, send a child to school, to help fund an idea or something that they're working on. And so I think the idea of home ownership, of home equity in home ownership, is something that as we look back and as we look forward is certainly the benefit of home ownership today. And there are a lot of non-financial benefits of home ownership that I think we need to be talking about. But these financial benefits have gotten stronger through the pandemic for homeowners across the country. I think the question on a lot of people's minds is really what's ahead in 2021. And that may be for a lot of people that we serve, consumers, it might be a little blurry right now. Wondering, okay, what's going to happen in the coming year? And a lot of that's going to be dependent on the course of the coronavirus vaccinations. All those things that are going to contribute to the path forward, but we can make the path clearer relative to real estate and the needs our customers may have through looking at what experts are saying about 2021. I have a quote from David here, the president of Homes.com. He says this: the surge in work-from-home population has rewritten the playbook for many home buying and rental decisions, from when and where to relocate to what people are looking for in their next residence. And we certainly know that's true. Folks that are working from home, folks that may not have been in the office 5 days a week, that's what's driving our home buying decisions. And all those may not be the people strictly working from home. Those are the people that may only have to come into the office 1 or 2 days a week, and there are still a lot of questions about that. But the surge is that really changing the way that people make decisions about where they live. And I think we can expect 2021 for that to become more clear for people. Whenever it becomes clear, they can make that decision for where and when they want to buy a home. Mark from First American says this: despite the best intentions of home builders to provide more housing inventory, the big short in housing supply will continue into 2021 and likely to keep house appreciation flying high. So we know builders are building. We've talked about the builder confidence among the starts that are happening across the country, those being well above where they were a year ago. And all of that's going to bring more inventory back into the market. But the challenges in inventory, certainly on the first half of the year, are expected to persist and keep that upward pressure on home prices across the country. 2021 home price forecast, as we see here, if we look anywhere from 2 to 6% from NAR to MBA to everything in between, if we take the two out on the end, we see between 3 and 4% home appreciation. Now, what does that do? We just talked about how CoreLogic said homes appreciated 7.3% this year, and they're calling for a little less bit appreciation this year. Not depreciation, but less appreciation. That was really hard to say. Really giving a sign to more inventory coming in the market, whether that comes from builders, people putting their home on the market that didn't last year. We're going to talk about this in a minute. Those affected by the pandemic need to sell their home, but more inventory coming back onto the market, helping to keep in check home price appreciation. As we get more information on this, we'll bring that to you. But I think suffice to say, we're going into 2021 with healthy expectations for home price as we go forward. I just mentioned the second half of the year, and Realtor.com came out and said this. They said, the bright spot for buyers is that more homes are likely to become available the last 6 months of 2021. That should give folks more options to choose from and to take away some of their urgency. With a larger selection, buyers may not feel forced to make a decision in mere hours and will have more time to make up their minds. So as we go throughout the year, expect more inventory to go on the market in the second half of the year as opposed to the first half of the year. Why is that? Because there are expectations from, again, builders having to have homes available to go out and sell. Also, the pandemic to be, further along in the recovery effort, which means people should feel safer to go out and do that, including listing their homes for sale and inviting those buyers inside to see their home. And a lot of the virus contributed to people not doing that in 2020. And I get it. It makes sense. And so if we think about that, that's the bright spot that Realtor.com is talking about, the second half of the year being stronger than the first half. Now, a lot of that's going to depend ultimately on our economic recovery, and I think that's the question on a lot of people's minds. It's just a few months ago when we were talking about the comparison to the Great Recession and even the Great Depression relative to unemployment. A lot of people saying, hey, this is going to be worse than the Great Recession, or hey, worse than the Great Depression. And if you remember, we talked more about depth, less length slide. I've got an update of that here, the outlines. Okay, what happened and where we are right now relative to unemployment. You see there in the yellow? That's the actual unemployment drop there, if you will. And we know we hit almost 15% unemployment across the country, but for a very, very short time. And I certainly don't want to minimize those who were affected by that because it was rough. But nowhere near the length of unemployment, a lot of depth there. And we see that V, recovery in unemployment there, that's happened. According to the Wall Street Journal and the Fed, we show both of those right here in blue and green, somewhere in between 3 and 5 years to get back to where we started in this country before the pandemic and before unemployment. You can see those actual projections right here going into 2021, 2022, and 2023, where we'll be. And you'll see the slight decrease in unemployment as time goes on. But no doubt, people need to get back to work. We want everybody to. And that's not work, that's looking for a job and to have a job, and I certainly want to see those folks get back to where they were. And where we stand today, 6.7 unemployment in this country. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but certainly not at the high of 15 like we experienced towards the middle of last year. The other thing I think is important for us to keep in mind, coming from the policy center at the Urban Institute, it says renters are disproportionately hurt by the crisis. Let's remember this as we go through the year. A greater share of renters lost their jobs. This means they're using their savings that could have been used for a down payment and falling behind on bills, which will hurt their credit and make it even more difficult for them to be future homeowners. Certainly that's something we want to be mindful of as we go into talking about people that are renting that want to buy a home. The message of it didn't take 20% down to buy a house. Still a big misconception in our business. You can get into a house for a lot less than 20% down. But renters, no doubt, have been disproportionately affected by this crisis, and as they get more job backs, they're able to recover from this, and then we're going to be able to help them. So, okay, how can we help you? Those that want to buy a home and benefit from that, how do we help them do that? The other big question that's going to continue to be around is what's happening with forbearance. Now, our team has stayed on top of this. You are all well vested in being able to have this conversation. But Home Price Expectation Survey for the fourth quarter came out, and they asked this question. For each of the following possible past forbearance outcomes, which percentage of these 2.7 million homeowners do you estimate will? 58%, they said, will resume their mortgage payments, stay in their home for at least a year. 1.57 million individuals. So the overwhelming majority will continue on and will be in their homes and will be largely unaffected. 24% there in green will list their home within 1 year of exiting forbearance. That's 648,000 individuals and their families in that bucket. A lot of folks. They're saying within a year of exiting forbearance will make a decision to list their home. 18% will receive forbearance within 1 year of exiting forbearance, which is 400,000. So I think when we look at these numbers, they're big numbers. We're talking over and about close to 2-year time frame within a year of exiting forbearance and another one, 18% there within the year of forbearance. And so I think this point right here is an important point that we want to look at and why we still need to talk about forbearance. We've got to talk to the people if they're in a situation where they may need to list their home. They're in a situation where they've been affected through work and aren't able to continue that. Whether they've gone through a workout or whatever the case may be with their bank, they still may have to list their home, and this is where we can help people. Help people understand what's the equity in your home, what your options are right now, whether you're able to sell the home, whether you're able to pay a commission and put a little bit of money into their pocket to get going to the other side of the crisis they're in. But there's an opportunity to help folks through that ongoing situation with forbearance, and I think that's what we have to pay attention to right now. The other thing is the reality of where we stand today is that Treasury rates have been moving up since the election, according to the MBA, but mortgage rates have been going down. And that's because the federal government is pinning down mortgage rates by all the action that they're taking in the secondary bond market. Mike goes on to say, we're going to start seeing mortgage rates drift up with Treasury rates as opposed to moving in the opposite direction. Now, I'm not trying to sit here and forecast mortgage rates for that, but the outlook as the economy improves is that the rates will rise. I think as we look into the year and we look into 2022, we have to say, okay, what's going to happen there? We're calling for home price appreciation, clearly from experts, and the experts are saying mortgage rates are going to rise. Certainly, we think from what we see from the experts is we will be in a good mortgage environment, but they're going to rise. And so what our team did is we made a calculation based upon where interest rates are today and where, with appreciation and interest rates a year from now, where we could potentially be. And that's the visual right here. Today, we take a $300K mortgage as an example, an average 30-year fixed 2.7%. That principal and interest payment is $1,116.79. If we take the 2021 fourth quarter estimate, according to Realtor.com, of appreciation and their interest rate forecast, 5.7% appreciation and a 3.4 interest rate, that mortgage is now $317K. That principal and interest payment is $1,406, a difference of almost $200, $198.21. That's a shock to people when they look at that. And most experts would say what's driven home ownership in 2020? Well, needs have changed. A lot of that may have been the low rates, but as we look forward, those aren't going to just hang around forever. I'm not saying the scenario is absolutely going to happen, but it could happen. And that's why I think right now we need to talk about the value of home ownership and what equity has meant to people over the last year. Because people that buy homes this year, we talked about the average home expectation survey, home will appreciate close to $50,000 and the average price of a $300,000 home over the next 5 years. But also as we go forward, affordability will begin to become an issue as rates slowly rise and homes appreciate. Now, when you look at a 3.4% 30-year fixed mortgage, that's certainly a great rate historically speaking. But when we come out at 2.7 as the average 30-year fixed right now, the shock of almost $200 for a borrower or homeowner is real. And we need to be talking about that. We need to be talking about the value of equity in today's market. So I'll wrap up with this last quote because I think it underscores what we believe and what you're about. This comes from Jessica at NAR. She says, I do believe the American dream of homeownership is very strong. It's very much alive from all the survey data that I've seen. If you're not a homeowner, you want to be one in the future, whether that's a short-term or a long-term goal. You know, home ownership has no doubt made a difference this year, and in the past year will continue to make a difference going forward. It ultimately, all the reasons that people buy homes, from family situations to real life events, things happening in their lives, and I think we're in one of the best businesses, if not the best business on the face of the earth. And helping people get into homes is the job that we have in front of us, really. And it's a goal to make sure that these people are happy and that we're getting the best value for their money. As more comes out this year, we're going to keep up to date on that, but get this message out. Get the message that we have the information that you need to know on home ownership and equity rates, and that I'm more than happy to start that conversation with you now to get ready for the spring market. So go ahead and like and follow me on social media. If there's any questions that you have, I'm so happy to help you get started on this journey. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.